Hello guys, once again I want to welcome you to our YouTube class, and in today's class we want to look at the subphylum Vertebrata. If you can remember vividly, we started the study of the animal kingdom with the study of the invertebrates. Of course, the order of evolution is from invertebrate to vertebrate. So we began studying the first animal, the protozoa. We studied the porifera, the sponges. We studied the cnidaria, platyhelminths. We look at nematoda. We look at annelida. We look at mollusca, arthropoda, then echinodermata, and we ended with the phylum chordata. And I did mention that the phylum chordata is the only phylum that captures or that links the invertebrates and the vertebrates. Under this chordata, we said we have about 4 different subphyla. We have the urochordata, we have the hemichordata, we have the cephalochordata, we now have vertebrata. So you can see what I just did was to trace how we got to this vertebrata, starting from the invertebrate. So within the course of evolution, there was a kind of a transition from invertebrate to vertebrate. So this vertebrata is a subphylum of the phylum chordata. Chordata. All right. So we want to begin to study this vertebrata. Now, when we get to the study of vertebrata, we have 4 main characteristics. We have 4 main characteristics of this subphylum vertebrata. Even though there are others, but these ones are called the key 4 characteristics or features, or you can even call it diagnostic features of chordata, since these features or characteristics are peculiar to the phylum, to the subphylum Vertebrata, not chordata, subphylum Vertebrata. So, the first one is the presence of notochord at embryonic stage. I'm going to start. In all vertebrates, they have this embryonic, notochord that is found at their early stage of development, even though in some vertebrates, like in fishes, we have the chordates and the jawless fishes. These ones have the notochord persisting all through their adult life. Whereas in some vertebrates, starting from fish again, you see that the notochord transforms into another structure which is now called the vertebral column. So you can see that in Ostriches. Ostriches are the bony fishes. So in the bony fishes, their notochord transform into a vertebral column, and of course that is exactly what happens in amphibians, in the reptiles, in aves, and in mammals. So that is it about the notochord. At embryonic stage, vertebrates usually have notochord. Why this notochord persists all through the life of some fishes, like the jawless fishes, the hard fishes, and the lampreys, then you can also see it in the chordates, that is the cartilaginous fishes. But coming to the stichiates, the bony fishes, you see that the what's it called again? The notochord transform into the structure called the vertebral column. Then the next one is presence of dorsal hollow nerve cord. So in all vertebrates, this dorsal hollow nerve cord passes all through the adult life in all vertebrates, including fishes. So it is this dorsal nerve cord that transforms into the brain and the spinal cord. So you see the same thing. You discover that it persists all through the adult life of all vertebrates without any exception. Then another one is what they call the presence of pharyngeal gill slit. This pharyngeal gill slit, of course, transforms into a functional gill that is in fishes, and even in some amphibians. There are some amphibians that, of course, are aquatic, and they have gills. They have gills, all through their life, all through their adult life, like the mud puppies. These are kind of amphibians. You see that even though they're amphibians, but they have gills. Gills persist all through their life, just like you see in fishes, and they are aquatic. But in other vertebrates, you discover that these pharyngeal gill slits will transform into some structures known as the eustachian tube, the tonsils, then the jaw and the neck. The eustachian tube, the tonsils, then the jaw and the neck. That is what the pharyngeal gill slit transforms into in other vertebrates. Then, of course, we have the presence of post-anal tail. The presence of post-anal tail is also another structure, that is a tail that extends beyond the anus. A tail that extends beyond the anus. You also see it in vertebrates. But there is a little modification in fishes. In fishes, you will see that in fishes and in amphibians and even in reptiles, you discover that the tail persists all through their life, though we have some exceptions. Like in frogs, the tail is usually found at the tadpole stage. When it becomes adult, through metamorphosis, the tail is lost. But the salamander still has it all through their life. Then it's found in all fishes, and found in reptiles. Then when it comes to the aves, you discover that the post-anal tail is reduced. Then when it comes to mammals, it regresses. It's almost lost or transforms into what is called the coccyx or the tailbone. So these are some of the modifications you see. Then there are other characteristics. Like I said, these four are the main major key characteristics of the vertebrates. We have other characteristics such as being metamerically segmented. They are metamerically segmented. So that's another one. Even though they are metamerically segmented, yes, even though it's something you may not really see on the external part of some of these vertebrates, but then if you look at the vertebral column, you see that the vertebral column has repeating segments, repeating units of segments. That is what we mean by being metamerically segmented. Even the ribs, you can also see that the rib is also metamerically segmented. Then they also have endoskeleton made up of cartilage or bone, made up of cartilage or bone. Then the organ of excretion is the kidney. Then there is true heart with valves. Yes, they have true heart, and this true heart has valves, and the function of this valve is to prevent blood from flowing back, through the chambers as it moves from one chamber to the other chamber. So this is how far we can go when it comes to the characteristics of vertebrata. A minute. Characteristics of vertebrata. So the next thing we want to look at now is the evolution. The evolution. Let's spend a little time to talk about the evolution and advancement of vertebrata. Evolution and advancement of vertebrata. All right. So, according to fossil records, of course, I've explained that life on Earth is recorded on fossils. That's the remains of dead plants and animals. So, according to fossil record, we are told that the oldest vertebrate appeared on the earth during the period that is called the Ordovician period of the Paleozoic era. This is about 500 million years ago. About 500 million years ago. That is when this first group of vertebrates evolved. And these vertebrates that evolved at this period were busier like animals. That means they were looking very strange, made up of thick bony materials, and they have the bony materials, or the bony thick the thick bony material that they have is called agnats. The bony thick materials that make up their skin is called agnats. And the name of this group of organisms, the earliest vertebrate, is called Agnata. Agnata. So from this bony thick body that they have, they were named Agnata. 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 Agnata, yes. And one major characteristic of this group of organisms, the fact that, let me start with the first one. One of the characteristics is that they had no jaws. They had no jaws, and that was why they adapted the filter feeding method, because they had no jaw to break their food materials. So one of the common names you can call this group of organisms is jawless fish. Jawless fish. Of course, without being told, you should know that the first vertebrate, the first group of vertebrates are the species. From the species we have the amphibians, the reptiles. We are still going to go through all this. So these agnata were the first and the oldest group of vertebrates to have evolved on Earth about 500 million years ago. And like I said, they have these bony thick materials called agnats, and that was why they were named agnata, and they are jawless fish. These organisms, this group of animals, flourish within the period they call the Silurian period. Within the Silurian period, you can see that so within the Silurian period, this group of organisms flourish so much within the Silurian period. These are when you hear Ordovician, the Paleozoic, the Silurian. These are talking about, this just means different era. Maybe 4 to 5 million years ago, 500 million years ago. That is just what it means. Different era, different period that has existed. Okay, so like I said, they flourish within the Silurian period, but when it got to towards the end of the Devonian period, the Devonian period, towards the end of when it got towards the end of the Devonian era or period, then this group of organisms began to decline. They began to dwindle. And as a matter of fact, before the end of the Devonian period, they all went into extinction. But one thing happened before they went into extinction. Before they went into extinction, they gave rise to two different representatives. These two different representatives are called the lampreys. The lampreys and hagfishes. Lampreys and hagfishes under the class Cyclostomata. They gave rise to the lampreys and the hagfishes. So these lampreys and hagfishes became the living representatives of the agnata that went into extinction. Okay. Now, we were also told we are looking at the evolution of vertebrates. As these Agnatha declined, there were this other group of vertebrates, or you can still say fishes, because all of them were fish-like, or fishy. All of them were fishes. There is this group of vertebrates that also emerged, and they are called the Placodermi. The Placodermi. The Placodermi became a force, and when they emerged, these Placodermi, when they emerged, remember I said after the or before the Agnatha went to the extinction, they gave rise to two groups, the lampreys and hagfishes under the class Cyclostomata. Then there's another class of fishes that also evolved on their own within the period when Agnatha went to the extinction, and those groups are called the Placodermi. This is the class too, the Placodermi. The Placodermi. So the Placodermi became a force at the Devonian period, but towards the end of the Permian, they disappeared from the earth. So the Placodermi also became a force during the Devonian era, but when it got to the Permian era, they all disappeared. So members of Placodermi are extinct, just like we have extinct Agnatha. So they are no longer in existence. But there's something that happened. Before the remember I said these Placodermi evolved within that period when Agnatha went to the extinction, but they were not the living representative of Agnatha. The two living representatives of Agnatha are the lampreys and the hagfishes. But these lampreys and hagfishes were still jawless, just like their ancestor Agnatha. And there was a kind of evolutionary change that occurred at the emergence, or when the Placodermi emerged, because they now came up with a feature that was not in Agnatha, and that feature is the presence of jaw. That means that the Placodermi were the ancient vertebrates or the ancient fishes to present or to evolve with jaw. So they were called jaw fishes, whereas Agnatha were the jawless fishes. But don't forget that I said that they also disappeared and went to the extinction towards the end of towards the time of the Permian era. Alright. But it's also important I let you know this, that before the disappearance of the Placodermi, remember, before the disappearance of Agnatha, they gave rise to lampreys and hagfishes called Cyclostomata. So before the disappearance of the Placodermi, they also gave rise to two groups of fishes. These two groups of fishes are called the chordates and they gave rise to two groups of fishes called the chordates and ostiates. These ones are commonly called the cartilaginous fishes, and these ones are commonly called the bony fishes. The cartilaginous fishes and the bony fishes. The cartilaginous fishes and the bony fishes. So that is the two different groups of fishes that arose from the Placodermi, the two classes of fishes that arose from the Placodermi. Alright. So because of the fact that fishes generally thrived within this Devonian period, they thrived. You mentioned this one, it would say that they thrived in the Devonian period before they went to the extinction. So the Devonian period was a remarkable era where several groups of fishes thrived before some of them now went into extinction, and some of them that gave rise to living representative before even going on extinction. So the Devonian period is now known as the era of fishes or the age of fishes. This Devonian period is known as the age of what? Fishes. The age of fishes, because fishes generally flourish within this era. And that is why this era, the Devonian era, is known as the age of what? Fishes. So let's progress. Alright, we are going to be going to another important thing now, and that is to talk about the first the first land vertebrates. You know, all fishes, of course, are aquatic, and a time came when amphibians evolved, and these amphibians came from the what we call the earliest land vertebrates. The earliest land vertebrates. These earliest land vertebrates actually evolved from the Ostriches or from the bony fishes, and they are called the lobe fins. The lobe fin fishes. The lobe fin. The lobe fin. So we want to look at how amphibians evolved. So I'm looking at how amphibians evolved. So I'm saying that amphibians evolved from the lobe fins. So the lobe fins are known as the earliest vertebrates that gave rise to the first land vertebrates. The earliest vertebrates or the earliest fishes that gave rise to the first land vertebrates, which are the amphibians. So the ancestors amphibians are the lobe fins, and these lobe fins, evolved from the bony fishes, which are what? The Ostriches. Now, lobe fins, even though they are called lobe fin fishes, but there are some adaptation or advancements you could see in these lobe fins that, of course, made them to become the ancestors of amphibians. And one of those adaptations is the presence of lungs. There is no animal that can breathe with lungs while in water. So we will now say, what of the amphibians that live in water, or the reptiles that live in water? For organisms that live in water, what they do is that if they want to breathe, they kind of scale up, come up, because the dissolved oxygen in water, the lung is not a kind of structured in such a way that it will take in oxygen while in water. So if an organism that uses lungs want to take in oxygen, then of course it comes out of the water, or it raises its head above the water to take in oxygen, after which it goes back into aquatic environment. And that oxygen it has taken can, sustain it for some minutes, like 30 minutes or 1 hour, and when there is need again, then it comes up again. That is how the organisms that have lungs thrive within aquatic environment. So once they take in that oxygen, they kind of they kind of hold their breath and reduce their level of metabolism, so that to conserve the oxygen they have taken. They have specialized ways of conserving the oxygen until when next they come up again to take up oxygen. So that is it. But these lobe fins, because they are evolving into a group of animals that partly stay on land and partly stay in water, and because of that, gills will no longer be needed. So these lobe fins now gave rise to the first group of amphibians. Now came with special adaptation which we are not found in other fishes, and that is the possession of lungs, and possession of paired limbs, and paired lungs. All right. So they eventually gave rise to the first group of amphibians, and the amphibians thrived within the Carboniferous era. That was when, or period, that was when that was when the amphibians flourished. So while the Devonian period is known as the age of fishes, the Carboniferous era is known as the age of fishes. And towards the end of the Permian era, the amphibians flourished within the Carboniferous era and early Permian era, and towards the end of the Permian era, we discovered that they began to decline. And also towards the beginning of the Triassic period, the Mesozoic era, there's a period called the Triassic period. I've explained all this period to you, just talking about different years, years at which some of this evolution occurred. So geologists are the ones who have studied this different era and gave different number to them based on what they discovered, like 400 million years, like 50 million years, like 45 million years, and so on and so forth. So that is what this era is all about. So we are saying that the amphibians flourish within the Carboniferous era but began to decline at the end of the Permian era towards the period that is called the Triassic period of the Mesozoic era. The Triassic period of the Mesozoic era. And one of the things that led to the decline of amphibians was a geological or a biological disaster. Scientists, people who have studied this evolution, say that within that period there was a kind of crisis that they called the Triassic crisis. The Triassic crisis. So this Triassic crisis, was as a result of either geological or biological disaster that happened on the earth then, and as a result of that disaster, it led to the extinction of many amphibians. So many of them died at that period. So that crisis is what they call the Triassic crisis. And after this decline, not all of them died anyway. Some of them still remained, and the ones that remained are categorized under three different orders. We have the Anura, so the ones that did not die, the ones that did not disappear, are categorized into three different order. We have the Anura, that's where you see the frogs and the toad and the frogs, that's where you see them. Then we have newts and salamander under this, newts and salamander under Urodera. So this one is toad and frog. Then this one is what they call the burrowing form. The limbless burrowing forms. Just a minute. limbless burrowing forms. And why are they called limbless burrowing forms? Of course, they did not have limbs. They did not have limbs, and that is why they are called the limbless burrowing forms. That they had to burrow through the ground when they are moving. So these were the 3 different orders of amphibians that were left after the Permo-Triassic crisis. That is what I call the geological or biological disaster that happened at that moment. Alright, so another thing you have to understand now or want to look at is how the reptiles evolved. The reptiles evolved. We have talked about the evolution of amphibians, and we found that the reptiles evolved from amphibians. The reptiles evolved from amphibians. The reptiles evolved from amphibians within the period when the number of amphibians dwindled. That was when the reptiles now came to the stage. That was when they evolved, the reptiles. And the reptiles became dominant. They became dominant in the Mesozoic era, which is called the age of reptiles. So, Mesozoic era, the reptiles became dominant. That means they flourished during the Mesozoic era. Remember that the fishes flourished within the Devonian era. So that's the age of fish. Carboniferous era, the age of amphibians. So the Mesozoic era is now the age of reptiles. So that was when the reptiles flourished. And we have 3 different. Okay, before we go into the order, there's another thing we want to know. Look at all the living reptiles except crocodiles arose from a common ancestral stock that is known as a stem or root reptiles. Yes. All the reptiles. Let me use this structure to explain this now. I think that is where we are now. So we have established the fact that during the period when these early amphibians, or when amphibians declined, so during the period when amphibians declined, that was when the reptiles came on board. And all the reptiles came from these cotylosaurs. The cotylosaurs evolved from the amphibians, and even the therapsids also evolved from the amphibians. Then all the reptiles came, apart from crocodiles or the crocodilians, evolved from the stem and root reptile. These cotylosaurs are called the stem and root reptiles. That is the ancient group of reptiles that gave rise to other reptiles except crocodile. And possibly that is why crocodile has 4-chambered heart, whereas other reptiles have a 3-chambered heart, because their evolution actually took different paths. So the cotylosaurs gave rise to ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs that even went back into aquatic environment to live aquatic life. Then the therapsids gave rise to the mammals and the codons, and the codons now gave rise to the crocodilia. So you can see that crocodilia evolved from the same ancestral lineage of mammals, So mammals have four-chambered hearts. Crocodilians also have, or crocodiles also have four-chambered hearts. You can see the similarity because they're evolving from the same ancestral stock. Then these mammals and codons came from therapsids, and of course the codons, the crocodilia, the birds, then pterosaurs. The pterosaurs are the flying reptiles. This group of flying reptiles called the pterosaurs, and even the dinosaur, they all came from these codons. So this is the pattern of evolution that you can see. And this dinosaur is also important, of course, that dinosaurs are no longer in existence. So they flourish within this period before they went to extinction. They flourish within the Jurassic and Cretaceous era before they went into extinction. Before they went into extinction, that was when the dinosaurs were big reptiles, very, very big. Their tongue, I don't want to begin to describe them. Their tongue, was so big that people could play football on it. The heart was like a smoker. The young offspring like an elephant. So big. So, but it went into extinction, and we're still going to look at that, what even led to the extinction of dinosaurs. But before we get into what led to the extinction of dinosaurs, it is important to look at the what's it called again? The reason why reptiles are more successful than amphibians, and one of them is the use of external fertilization by amphibians. Fishes and amphibians, use external fertilization as a method of fertilization. That means that both eggs and sperm are laid on the external environment, and sometimes these eggs are destroyed, even though they have some adaptive ways of ensuring the integrity of the sperm and egg, but because it's external, it's not holistic. So that of reptiles are internal. So this is one advantage that reptiles have over amphibians. Then the skin of amphibians, even at that adult stage, is moist, but that of the reptiles is not. And that means that there's so much desiccation. There's so much loss of water. There's so much loss of water, in amphibians compared to reptiles. So that loss of water is reduced because of the kind of hard skin that reptiles have. Then most amphibians also have weak legs that could not even support their body. That means some of them have to burrow on the ground because their weak legs could not support them, unlike in reptiles. Then another one is the lungs of amphibians were poorly developed. Yes, if you compare the lungs of that of amphibians and that of reptiles, that of the reptiles, is well developed compared to that of amphibians. Then in terms of heart, amphibians have three-chambered heart, but reptiles also have three-chambered heart. Yes, reptiles also have three-chambered heart, but the crocodilians, like I mentioned, have four. So we may not really point out that. Then the orders of reptiles will have important orders of reptiles. The chelonia. This is where you see the turtle. The chelonia turtle. They will have the second one, the crocodilia. That is where you see the crocodiles. They have the squamata. This is where you see the lizards and snakes. Then we have the lyncocephalia. rhynchocephalia. So the rhynchocephalia, and we have the only surviving member. The rhynchocephalia, the only surviving species of this Tautara, which is an order of rhynchocephalia, is Sphenodon pontatus, not pontata. There's a mistake some people make in writing A. Yeah, it's not Sphenodon pontata, but Sphenodon pontatus. That is the surviving species of this Tautara, which is an example of a rhynchocephalia. Then the squamata have lizard as name. So these are the order of reptiles. The order of reptiles. So, having noted that now, let's now talk about the reason why dinosaurs went into extinction. We have several schools of thought with respect to the reason why dinosaurs went into extinction, but the most popular one is the one they call the catastrophism school of thought. And this catastrophism school of thought holds so many beliefs, and one of them was the fact that the moon was scooped from the Pacific Ocean, and it caused earthquake and tidal volcanic eruption. So that means that the moon was initially part of the Pacific Ocean, and it was scooped, went into the space, and that region where it was scooped resulted to earthquake, and that led to the birth of dinosaurs. Of course, some of these things are not making sense, but of course, we are studying them. That is one of the beliefs and one of the postulations of the catastrophic school of thought. Then another one is that they also believe that that it was possible that an epidemic, a kind of disease, wiped out the whole dinosaur. Then some also believe that the food of dinosaur, like the cedar and conifers, reduced, abated, and that resulted to the hunger that wiped away dinosaur. Then some also thought about explosion of a new star. There was a star that exploded, and the radiation now killed all the dinosaurs. Then some also thought about racial senescence, that they became old. Imagine, they became old without giving birth to other dinosaurs and went into extinction. Some also thought about climate change as the reason why they went into extinction. So that is it about the different schools of thought when it comes to the extinction of dinosaurs. The most popular one is the catastrophism school of thought. Alright, so we're going to go forward. Let's look at the characteristics of vertebrates. So we have talked about the characteristics of vertebrates. Then I want to now list the classification of vertebrates. How are vertebrates classified? So the first one is superclass, Agnata. I mentioned that. Agnata is superclass. We have another superclass. So superclass Agnata. We have classes. We have class Cyclostomata. We have another class. The one they call Ostracodermi. Yes, ostracoderma. Then this is superclass 1. They'll have gonatostomata. Gonatostomata. Okay, this is superclass. Superclass gonatostomata. They'll have class placodermi. Then they'll have another class chordates. They'll have another class Ostiches. Then we'll have Amphibia. Then we'll have Reptilia. We'll have aves. We'll have mammalia. So these are the different classes, about 6 of them of vertebrates. For some people, when they are asked of the class of vertebrates, they just start with the pieces. So it's good that even though we know that this and this are under pieces, but it's also good we classify them separately. Sorry, this is not subclass, this is superclass. Sorry, the mistake. Superclass, not subclass. Superclass. So this is superclass. Agnata. It has 2 classes, Cyclostomata and Ostracodermi. Then superclass Gnatostomata, it has Placodermi, chordates. Like I said, these ones have gone into extinction. Then these ones will have the hagfishes and lampreys. These ones have also gone into extinction. Then we have the Placodermi have gone into extinction. This is the cartilaginous fishes, the sharks and the rays. Then Ostiches, that is where you see the tilapia, the catfish, the carp. So that is it about this. That is about this. Alright. So let's now talk about few. Let's mention few. I hope this is not too much. 48 minutes. Alright. So let's now mention some of the few characteristics of these groups. Some of the few characteristics. I'm just going to be mentioning just few of them. Just few of them before we. Alright. So, the class Cyclostomata, they are the most primitive craniates or vertebrata. They are the most primitive. The lampreys and hagfishes. Why is this so? The reason is because the Agnata gave rise to Cyclostomata. And like I said, the 2 examples of Cyclostomata and the lampreys and the hagfishes. So if one says that the Cyclostomata or the lampreys and hagfishes are the most primitive vertebrata, they are correct. Because the most primitive one, which is called Agnata, is no longer in existence. But it gave rise to children or to 2 offspring before it went into extinction. Then they have a larval stage that is called yes, they have a larval stage that is called amniosus. I'm just mentioning two characteristics. Then coming to ostracodermi, another important characteristic is the presence of a bony endoskeleton and the exoskeleton made up of placoid scales. So for ostracodermi, they have exoskeleton made up of placoid scales, and they have bony endoskeleton. They also have bony endoskeleton. They have bony endoskeleton. So another one is that they have sac-like gills and ossified tissue. They have gills that looks like a sac, a bag. So that is it about that. So coming to Gnathostomata, let's look at some of the classes under the superclass Gnathostomata, and one of them is chordates. The first thing you should know that they are cartilaginous species. That is the popular name, the common name for chordates. They are cartilaginous species, and the endoskeleton composed of cartilage, like you have said, which is impregnated with calcium source. Exoskeleton consists of placoid scales. So, in the same vein, just like we mentioned in the ostracodermi, the exoskeleton of members of this group also, that is chordates, also contains the placoid scales. Then Ostichiates, fast forward to Ostichiates. This group of fishes are embryonic. This group of fishes cartilage are only embryonic, adult stage. Okay, I've mentioned this before. The notochord only persists during the embryonic stages. That is for Ostichiates. As they mature into adult, the notochord transforms into vertebral column. But their scales are still made up of placoid, are still made up of bony scales. So quickly, circulatory system in fishes. Fishes have two-chambered hearts. They have two-chambered hearts, but these two-chambered hearts can be divided into four different parts. Fishes do not have four-chambered hearts. What they have is two, but the two can be divided into four different parts. We have the first one as the sinus venosus. We have the ventricle. We have the atrium. We have the conus. The conus arteriosus is also called the bulbus codis. So these are the four different parts of the heart of a fish: the sinus venosus, the ventricle, the atrium, the conus arteriosus, or the bulbus codis. Okay, remember, I'm just picking the most important thing when it comes to this vertebrata. It's not everything that we are going to look at. Then when it comes to respiratory system in fish, respiratory organ consists of the mouth and the gills. The respiratory organ consists of the mouth and the gills, that is for fishes. Then adaptation in fishes. There are some certain characteristics or features that enable fishes to survive in the environment. One is the presence of gills, and gills, of course, are suitable for aquatic life. Without gill, the organism will not be able to get oxygen. The presence of lateral line. This is a sense organ that help in the detection of vibration. The detection of vibration within its environment. The lateral line, very important. Then of course we have tails and fins, and that's straightforward. The function of tails and fins is for locomotion. Then we have that the shape of fish is torpedo. They have torpedo shape. That means a shape that looks like a boat, a shape that somehow looks like a boat, and this shape is very, very important. It enables fish or fishes to maneuver or to navigate through water. So these are some of the important adaptations that enable fishes to survive in their environment. Okay, so we now get to the class Amphibia. The class Amphibia, these are craniates that have partially succeeded in overcoming the difficulties of attending life on land. They have skin. They have skin that is moist and soft and scaleless, characteristics of amphibians. Members of this class, they have 2 pairs of appendages. Then they have digits. Digits may be either 4 or 5, depending on the animal. Then they have movable eyelids. The eyelids of amphibians are movable. They have 5 teeth in their mouth. Their tongue is protractable. That is a mobile tongue that easily extend out of the mouth. That is what we call protractable tongue. They have a kind of mobile tongue that can extend out of their mouth. Then the skeleton is bony. Ribs are not attached to the sternum like you see in mammals or you see in humans. The ribs are attached to the sternum. It's not like that in the case of amphibians. Then the heart of amphibians, like I said, they have 3-chambered hearts. They have 3-chambered hearts, 2 auricles and 1 ventricle. 2 auricles and 1 ventricle. Then the red blood cells are nucleated. The red blood cells are nucleated. This is not like that in all vertebrates. For instance, in man, the red blood cells are not nucleated. They are only nucleated at the embryonic stage. As the individual mature, or during maturation, the nucleus is lost, and the reason why the nucleus is lost is to give more space for hemoglobin. Then kidney is mesonephros. We have pronephros kidney and mesonephros kidney. The type you see in amphibian is mesonephros. The lateral line is present. Lateral line is also present. Of course, amphibians transition from aquatic life into a life on land. So while in water, the larval forms have lateral line that also performs similar function like that of the fishes. And even you can also see the lateral line in adult amphibians, those that have adapted a persistent life in water, like the mud puppy is an amphibian but lives permanently in water. So those ones have lateral line. Then we have amphibians are poikilothermic. Yes, that is cold-blooded. That means the temperature varies with that of the environment. Then fertilization is external. We've mentioned that their fertilization is external, meaning that they lay the eggs and produce, a sperm that fertilizes it within the external environment. Then respiration. Respiration can be through the mouth, the lungs, and the skin. Respiration in amphibians can be through the mouth, buccal cavity, through the skin, cutaneous, then through the lungs, pulmonary. So that is respiration in amphibians. Alright, so that is in terms of circulatory system, We have already mentioned that they have two atria and one ventricle. That means that they have three-chambered heart. Then the structure of the heart, remember we said there are amphibians that have gills all through their life. Those ones are called the mud puppy. That means that gills persist all through their life, and of course they have adapted to live permanently in water. So they kind of we have the ventricle, so they have the ventricles, the atria, then the sinus venosus, sorry, not conus, the sinus venosus. So these are the three-chambered heart of amphibians, and of course the entire heart is covered by a layer that is called the pericardium. This pericardium is a structure that entirely covers the heart. All right. Then blood circulation in amphibians is I don't think I've mentioned that blood circulation is they have double circulation since they use lungs, but fishes have single circulation. So in fishes, blood flows from heart to maybe I'll still mention that later. I'll still mention that later. I want to use a structure to describe single and double circulation. So let me just move forward. What's the time? This is 1:02. So I don't want this to go down 1 hour 30 minutes. So characteristics of reptiles: the skin of reptiles is hard and dry. We have mentioned that. Many reptiles have colored skin, like a lizard. We have mentioned that. Then they use lungs for respiration, and their lungs are well equipped, well structured than that of the amphibians. They have a kidney that is metanephros. The uric acid is chief nitrogenous waste product. Of course, because reptiles are not trying to reserve or preserve, retain water because of the environment. They don't have so much abundance of water or given to water like the amphibians. So they have a unique way of releasing waste products that does not take so much water from the body, and that is through the form of uric acid. Neck is prominently present. The cranial bones are not complete. External ear is present. Blah 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 blah. So then snakes are examples of reptiles. We have this popular cobra that is called Hemachanthus, and the Niger nigrocollis. These are powerful cobra. So if somebody is bitten by a snake, like I said, I'm just speaking some important things now. So I don't want this video to be too long. The severity of a snake bite will have 4 different factors that should be considered when there is a snake bite. One is the species of the snake. Is the species poisonous? Of course, there are several species of snakes, even though some people don't know, that are not poisonous or dangerous to man. There are so many species that are not just dangerous to man. It's just about 300 species that are dangerous to man. So other species are not. And don't forget, we have about 23,000 species of snakes that some people don't even know about. So just few. 2,300 species, not 23,000. Just few of these species are dangerous to man. Then also check the toxicity of the venom, the site of injury, and the depth to which the fang has penetrated. The site of injury, there are some places where it becomes more injurious to the body than others. Then depending on the depth of penetration of the fang of the snake. So these are factors to consider if there is a snake bite. And what to do if there is snake bite. One of them is to identify the snake if possible. Identify the species of the snake. Then reassure the victim and keep the person at rest. Then wash the beaten surface with water without rubbing. Apply a ligature, tie the place to reduce the flow of blood, and also immobilize the victim. The part of the body that was bitten by the snake should not be allowed to move about, because the more you move that part of the body about, then of course it increases circulation, and if circulation is increased, the venom or the poison or the toxin will get to other parts of the body quickly. Then aves. We are now in aves. What are the characteristics of aves? A bird has 4 body division. The head, the neck, the trunk, and the tail. And of course, members of this class have close affinities with reptiles, and sometimes people call them glorified reptiles. The aves have close affinities with the reptiles, so people call them glorified reptiles. And they are thought to have evolved from the dinosaur. People also think that they did not directly evolve from the chordates, but from dinosaur. That is speculation anyway. The neck is long and easily rotational. The heart is 4-chambered. Then the tail is short and covered by feathers. The feathers are used for flying and for maintenance of internal body temperature. These are the 2 main functions of the tail. And the heart is 4-chambered. The heart of aves is 4-chambered. They have 4-chambered heart, just like mammals. They have different types of feathers. They have the quill feather, the covert feather, or contour feather, the plume, the down feather. Then it's important you note these different parts of the quill feather. The quill or calamus, note it. Then rachis or shaft, note it. The quill, that is different parts of quill feather. We have 1 quill or calamus. We have rachis or shaft. That's the second one. The third one, we have a vein and after shaft. So these are types of quill feather. Whereas I said we have 4 types of feather. The quill feather, the covert, plume, and down. These are the 4 different types of feathers. The covert feathers are smaller than the quill feathers. They are also more numerous than quill feathers. I mean the covert, they are smaller and more numerous. They are found in all parts of the head and trunks of the bird. They cover and isolate the body of the animal. Then the down feather, these are softer. The down feather are softer, and they are found beneath quill and covert feathers. They help in insulation of the bird against cold. They help in insulation of the bird against cold. Have you ever wondered how birds are able to to skate through when the environment is very cold. One of the adaptations, one of the structures that help them is the presence of these feathers. The functions of feathers: flight, insulation, and protection against rain. These are the three functions of feathers. Three functions of feathers. What again? The little system of birds. Let's forget about that. Adaptations. Now, these adaptations are not too difficult. Does not require so much explanation. It's something they can read and understand, like the perching birds, the aquatic adaptations, then the diving, the wading, feeding adaptation in birds, the ones that are diurnal and nocturnal, those ones that have sharp vision for those ones that have eyesight for night vision and for seeing during the day. The night ones are called the nocturnal. The ones that see clearly during the day are called the diurnal. Then lastly, we have mammalia. So characteristics of mammalia, they craniates with the highest structural development and physiological adaptation to life on land, and a few species are adapted to inhabit the aquatic environment. Like you see, the whales have adapted to live in aquatic environment, even though they are mammals. And one of the most important characteristics of mammals is the fact that they have mammary glands. And that mammary gland is just a modified skin gland. The modified skin gland. And the mammary gland, they secrete milk for the nourishment of the embryo. Then we have the presence of sweat and sebaceous gland for regulation of body temperature and excretory purposes. The brain has large central hemisphere, and they also have cerebellum. Then mammals have 4 optic lobes. The inner ear consists of a cochlea. Then of course they have diaphragm. This diaphragm separates the thoracic and the abdominal region. They also have ribs that protect the thoracic cavity and assist in respiration. So the ribs protect the what's it called again? The ribs protect the thoracic region and also assist in respiration. Alright. So like I said, I'm jumping some of this. So let me now take time to explain. I don't want this video to be too long. 13, okay. Let me now take time to explain the circulation. So in terms of circulation, there's what we call single circulation in fishes. Then in amphibians, in reptiles, in aves and mammals, they undergo what we call the double circulation. So for fishes, it's a very simple one. We have the heart, we have the gills, and I have the body. So from the heart, if blood flows to the gills, where it becomes oxygenated, and from gills to the body, then when it is used by the body, it flows back to the heart again, and from the heart, it gets to the gills where the blood becomes oxygenated. And once it becomes oxygenated, it gets to the body again, and from the body, it gets to the heart. Remember, when it gets to the body, it is being utilized by the cells, and before it is taken to the gills, it has to go through the heart. It is the heart that now pumps it to the gills, where the oxygenated blood becomes oxygenated again. So this is circulation in fishes. In other vertebrates we have double circulation. So we have that so look at this now. We have two different types of circulation. We have the single and the double. I've explained the single. Then under this double circulation, they are also of two types. The first one is called the pulmonary circulation, and the second one is called the systemic circulation. So the systemic circulation is the flow of blood from the heart to the body and back to the heart again. So look at the heart now. The blood flows from this heart to the body, and that is the blood that has become oxygenated. It gets into the body where it is utilized by the cells. Then once the body utilizes the oxygen, the nutrient content of the blood, then the blood becomes deoxygenated. This deoxygenated blood gets to the heart again. Then we have what is called a systemic vein. The systemic vein. The blood vessel that takes blood to the heart is the vein. And because it's within the systemic region, that is why it is called a systemic vein. Then the blood vessels that take blood, what's it called again? The blood vessel that takes blood away from the heart is the artery. So to the heart is vein, away from the heart is artery. So the heart is vein, away from the heart is artery. So this type of circulation is called systemic circulation, from the heart to the body. Then the second one is what is called the pulmonary circulation. It has to do with the lungs. So this blood is now pumped into the lungs, and the essence of pumping blood to the lungs is for oxygen to be loaded into the blood, because the blood that is being pumped into the lungs is the oxygenated blood. When it gets to the lungs, when the heart pumps into the lungs, it becomes oxygenated. That means oxygen is loaded into it. This blood vessel that takes this blood to the lungs is called a pulmonary vein. This is pulmonary artery. This is pulmonary artery. Why is this artery? Because it's taking blood away from the heart. Any blood vessel that takes blood away from the heart is the artery. Then the one that takes blood to the heart is called a vein. I hope you understood that. back to the heart again. That's what we call the pulmonary circulation. So, in pulmonary circulation, blood moves from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart again. Then, in systemic circulation, blood now moves from the body, okay, let me say from the heart to the body, and from the body back to the heart again. So this is what we call double circulation in vertebrates. Double circulation in vertebrates. And I think that is where we are going to stop the class. I've pointed out some of the most important things in this textbook. Some of the most important things with respect to this topic, Vertebrata. The other one is fertilization, and of course, fertilization is something one can read and understand. The sex cells are produced through meiosis, and the production of the eggs begins when a lady or when a female individual is, say, a fetus. That is when the primary oocytes are produced. Then, of course, it goes into meiosis in the vitro, the meat to transform into the secondary oocyte, and it remains there. It remains as prophase 1. It is seized as prophase 1 until during ovulation. That is when it completes meiosis 1 and gets into a secondary oocyte. Then that secondary oocyte now goes into the second stage of meiosis, which is meiosis 2, and of course, it remains there. It gets arrested again at metaphase 2, and the process of meiosis, meiosis 2, is only completed. It's only completed when fertilization is about to take place. When the egg, breaks through the zona pellucida, then about to fertilize the egg. That is when the secondary oocyte will now complete meiosis 2. And at the end of the day, you are going to discover that four different cells are produced. While one becomes functional, the three becomes polar bodies and degenerate. That is for female. In terms of male, the meiosis ends up producing 4 different cells that's called spermatia, and this spermatia undergoes spermiogenesis to now produce fully mature spermatozoa. Then, of course, during fertilization, the two meet together and they form a zygote. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how far we can go in Vertebrata. For those of you in ESUT writing the exam, I wish you the very best of luck. And of course, if you have been following my classes, there's no how you fail. How are you going to fail? If you have other people who, of course, need this video, do well to transfer to them or to send to them. Encourage your friends in other departments, in other schools to watch the video. The goal is for students to pass the exam. And like I said, if you look at what I wrote on my channel, I discovered over the years that this course, biology, has been a problem to students. Biology, general biology, genetics, parasitology, and that was why I took it upon myself to see how I can break them in such a way that students can assimilate and understand. So share the video so as many that you know that we need it, not just in ESUT, in UNN, in FUTO, FSU, FUNAI. Every school you know, you have friends in, and you know that this video will be useful to them, share to them. That will make you a very good person and somebody who looks after their friends. Then make sure you also subscribe if you have not subscribed. See you in my next video. I remain myself. I'm still your friend. Your friend, Dr. Anuku John.